Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. His soul core was stable enough. It was only fiercely resisting as it was provoked. However, it didn't waver at all. This was a blessing among all the misfortunes. Li Yue was already doing her best to aid Huo Yuhao. Her voice was already hoarse from singing, but she still continued. Because of her help, Huo Yuhao was completely focused on his control. He couldn't imagine what it would be like if he tried this method of cultivation before he fused with Li Yue. However, he was certain that he wouldn't have been able to last until this point. Bright light flashed from his body. The ultimate ice soul power released by the Ice Empress was strong and prosperous. Every time, she managed to block out most of Huo Yuhao's spiritual power. This wasn't just the strength of ultimate ice anymore. There was also the strength of the Ice Empress' spiritual origin. It was only through supplementing her spiritual power that she could successfully resist. The soul power around the Snow Empress ice crystals was continuously poured out. At this moment, she seemed to neglect the fact that Huo Yuhao could possibly suffer from immense pain. She was completely doing her own thing. The Ice Bear King was also almost at his limit. He was protecting Huo Yuhao's passageways, bones and internal organs. However, the two forces that revolved in different directions were still intensely attacking Huo Yuhao's body. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power could still hang on, but his body was on the verge of collapse. Although his body had been enhanced by the life gold, and he possessed extraordinarily immense life energy, the violent forces in his body were eventually too much for a human body to bear. His passageways were about to tear, and his internal organs were also on the brink of failure as they were squeezed and distorted. However, Huo Yuhao couldn't do anything else except hold on. Blood was already starting to come out of his mouth. This was a sign of his capillaries rupturing. If this continued, his body would be torn apart by the forces it was attempting to contain, and his spiritual soul core would blow apart as a result. The Snow Empress ice crystals shone a little, just as she was about to make a move. Suddenly, Huo Yuhao's dantian lit up. Following this, a layer of golden light quickly surged out from his dantian, and rapidly spread throughout his entire body. Whether it was spiritual power that was unleashed from his spiritual core, or the ultimate ice power around his chest, they couldn't prevent this golden force from appearing. This was because this golden force was completely fused into Huo Yuhao's blood. In just a few breaths, his passageways had turned completely golden. Even his blood and internal organs turned golden. From outside, Huo Yuhao was just like a golden statue, shining brightly with golden light. Furthermore, there was a dense layer of scales on his skin. These scales were also pure gold. They gradually expanded until they covered his entire body. Only his face maintained a human appearance. They were dragon scales. Yes, that's right, they were dragon scales. The scales of a holy radiant dragon. The excruciating pain in his body was alleviated slightly. Huo Yuhao was also very astonished. He didn't know where this had come from. The golden invasion caused his passageways, bones and internal organs to become bigger and bigger. In addition, it was even directly fusing with his body and becoming a part of him. It was a very familiar aura of light. However, it neither came from Wang Chuo's golden dragon, nor the three-eyed golden lion. Instead, radiant holy dragon. Yes. This is clearly the strength of a radiant holy dragon. Furthermore, it's not like a radiant holy dragon that eldest senior can turn into. Its strength is much purer and denser than eldest senior. Don't tell me this is teacher's strength. Is that even possible? Shrek Academy, Sea God's Island, Sea God's Pavilion. The Golden Tree. Gentle, golden light shone from the golden tree. Everyone could sense the gentle undulations that came from the golden light. All the elders walked out from Sea God's Island. They came in front of the golden tree, including Xian Lina. A ball of golden light rose from the golden tree, and drifted above the Sea God's Pavilion. That's, Elder Song focused her gaze. Although she couldn't see what was inside the ball of golden light, she could sense the familiar aura that came from it. The ball of golden light stopped in the air, and seemed to greet all the elders. Following this, it turned into a beam of flowing light, and flew towards the Tang sect. Elder Xian silently stood guard outside Huo Yuhao's laboratory. When Huo Yuhao's golden strength was invoked, Elder Xian immediately sensed it from outside. This is... what a strong power of light! However, since when did Yuhao possess such strong power? Huo Yuhao naturally couldn't give him an answer. Elder Xian only revealed an unsure look in his eyes. At this moment, a benevolent aura swept by. Golden light shone, and a projection appeared out of thin air in front of Elder Xian. Elder Mu. Elder Xian jumped up almost instantly, and was shocked as he looked at the projection in front of him. Elder Mu smiled at Elder Xian and nodded at him. After this, he drifted in front of him and gently patted his shoulder. A thought was also transmitted into Elder Xian's head. Shrek will depend on you in the future. Little Xian, take care. Before Elder Xian could say anything, the golden projection that Elder Mu had turned into flew past him and through the metal door. Elder Xian's body shook tremendously. Following this, an ominous feeling arose. He couldn't help but scream, Elder Mu. He quickly turned around. As he looked at the huge steel door behind him, he couldn't control his emotions. The golden projection that Elder Mu had turned into silently appeared in the laboratory, in front of Huo Yuhao. He revealed a peaceful look on his face as he looked at Huo Yuhao struggling. Kid, you've chosen a very tough path to embark on. However, what you've done is correct, whether it's for Shrek or the Three Empires. It's almost impossible for a human to cultivate using the yin-yang complement. I shall give you a hand. Golden light flashed, and Elder Mu retransformed into a ball of golden light, and charged directly into Huo Yuhao's head. Gentleness and warmth spread throughout Huo Yuhao's body. He was in torment and pain earlier, but it was very soothing right now. Huo Yuhao heaved a sigh of relief and almost fainted as he instantaneously relaxed. However, that warm and genial strength immediately engulfed his spiritual power and kept him in his current state. His spiritual power immediately calmed down. Teacher, it's really you. When Huo Yuhao saw Elder Mu in his spiritual sea, he immediately became very emotional. His spiritual power took form and turned into a projection of him. This projection kowtowed. Elder Mu smiled as he looked at his closed-door disciple. He smiled and let Huo Yuhao kowtow. After this, he drifted forward and arrived in front of him. He caressed his head gently. Kid, come here. Huo Yuhao stood up and looked at Elder Mu. His spiritual entity couldn't cry, but feelings of happiness spread from him. The feeling of seeing a loved one when one was in extreme pain was indescribable. Huo Yuhao felt protected with Elder Mu around. Teacher, Huo Yuhao sobbed. Elder Mu smiled and said, don't be like a kid anymore. Yuhao, you've grown up. You've done great. You've done much better than I expected. As your teacher, I'm proud of you. Although I've not been by your side all these years, I've heard of most of the things that have happened to you from little Xian. I also personally observed you myself. You've done really well. Teacher. Huo Yuhao called once again. Elder Mu said, this time, you chose the yin-yang complement to cultivate. Although it's reckless, it isn't wrong to some extent. Shrek needs someone who is powerful enough to change situations. Such a person hasn't appeared for years. 10,000 years ago, our ancestor Tang San used his abilities to change situations, building Shrek's foundation. 10,000 years later, I believe you have that potential too. If not for the fact that you activated the strength of the dragon pill in your body, I wouldn't have known you were capable of this. Since you are already doing it, I shall help you on this journey. Huo Yuhao was astonished as he looked at Elder Mu. Elder Mu nodded and said, Xiao Yao should be the one who helped you consume it. You should have seen him once before. Are you talking about the Dragon Emperor Doluor, Long Xiao Yao? Huo Yuhao was astonished as he looked at Elder Mu. Elder Mu replied, yes. I was the one who asked him to give you the dragon pill when the time was right. Huo Yuhao asked, isn't he from the Holy Ghost Church? He belongs with the evil soul masters. Why would he help us? Elder Mu shook his head and answered, Xiao Yao isn't an evil soul master. He's a poor soul. He's trapped by love. I had no choice but to get out of it then, but he's been trapped. Because of some wrongdoings he committed in the past, he chose to atone for them. That's why things are like this. However, he's still a soul master from the three empires. Before I died, I met him, passed the dragon pill to him, and implored him to give it to you when the time was right. At the same time, I also asked him to protect you if you were in danger. Protect me. Huo Yuhao could still clearly remember the pain from being stabbed so many times. Elder Mu smiled and nodded. He said, if he wanted to kill you, you would have already died. If not for the fact that he is secretly protecting you, I'm afraid that the Holy Ghost Church wouldn't be dealing with you this way. You'll understand in the future. As for the dragon pill, Elder Mu paused for a while before continuing. I happened to come across the dragon pill at an ancient ruin a long time ago. It was the carcass of a light-type giant dragon soul beast. If I did not see wrongly back then, it should be a light dragon, the natural enemy of the darkness dragons, which Di Qian belongs to. After dying, the light dragon's essence and energy naturally became a dragon pill. However, because the energy within this pill is extremely violent, humans are unable to absorb them into our bodies directly. After acquiring it, I had been keeping it with me all this time, even though I was not able to ingest its energy directly. The huge amount of energy within it was still extremely beneficial for my cultivation. With its help, I was able to build on my innate gifts and accelerate my training and development. I borrowed the energy from the dragon pill for my training all the way to rank 98, when I finally formed my second soul core with the resonance technique. If not, I might have even stayed at rank 98 longer than Xian Zi. Hence, it could be said that the birth of every ultimate Doluo comes with the presence of an enormous amount of luck. It was definitely true for me, and I believe it was the same way for Xiao Yao and Yi Shishui. I have actually tried to help others with this dragon pill. However, it has always failed. Their bodies were simply unable to withstand its domineering aura. More often than not, their martial souls were also incompatible with its energy. Hence, I decided to store the dragon pill within my body, and use my radiant holy dragon soul power to refine it. The process of transforming the energy within the pill was a very long one. It stayed within my body for close to 100 years. You probably know about the rest of the events that unfolded afterwards. I had a huge fight with Dubuzi, the sect leader of the body sect, and left the battle with several heavy injuries. Back then, I wanted to look for Shishui for some special reasons, and had to recover quickly. I immediately thought of the dragon pill, which I had been refining for a long time. I believed that it would no longer be a problem for me to ingest its energy. Hence, I tried to empty all the pill's energy into my body. I believed that I might be able to alert the gods within the god realm, and gain a chance to join them if I were able to pull it off. Unfortunately, I still underestimated the full amount of energy and essence that a giant dragon was able to put into a dragon pill. After absorbing its energy for a short while, I started to realize that something was wrong. When I was at my peak, the dragon pill was unable to harm me. Hence, I thought that the violent and domineering aura within it had disappeared. I did not expect it to have concealed itself within the pill. Once I started ingesting the energy, it rapidly released itself to cause havoc within my body after sensing how I had been weakened by Dubuzi. I was originally a lot more powerful than him. Even though I was heavily injured, I was not hurt in an extremely serious manner. However, absorbing the dragon pill was a grave mistake. It damaged my organs and sources of energy, which caused me to become who I was later. I almost died in the process of trying to suppress the dragon pill. However, the rage and violence within the pill had ravaged my body. I essentially spent the subsequent decades of my life fighting the dragon pill's rage and violence, until my body started to degenerate. However, after refining the pill for 100 years and absorbing all the rage and violence within it, the energy within the pill had been purified. It could now be absorbed by cultivators who did not possess dragon martial souls. Hence, I originally wanted to give it to Bei Bei. With its help, Bei Bei would have a good chance of becoming an ultimate Doluo in the future. However, it just so happened that I met you. When I realized you had an ultimate martial soul, I immediately changed my mind. This was because I knew how hard it was to train with an ultimate martial soul in the early stages. Even though it would be extremely smooth sailing during the intermediate stages, it would become extremely difficult again when the cultivator tried to form his second soul core to become an ultimate Doluo. If you were to only rely on yourself, your body would struggle to withstand the impact and power when you tried to form your second soul core. Hence, I decided to hold onto the dragon pill and observe your situation before making a decision. Your performance and potential truly impressed me. In addition, you are an extremely kind person who values hard work. Hence, before I died, I decided to pass this pill to you. However, the energy within the pill was ultimately too destructive for you to absorb directly. Also, you did not possess the ability to absorb it back then. Thus, I looked for Xiao Yao and asked him to take a view on my behalf. I told him to hand the dragon pill over to you at an appropriate moment. If my guess is correct, you must have nearly been killed by his attacks when you met him previously. However, you must understand that he was not targeting you. He only wanted to ensure your body remained empty and clear of any impurities. The energy within the dragon pill is not supposed to be fused with your soul power. It is supposed to be fused into your blood. This will grant you some of the abilities that dragons possess, and allow you to break free of your human limitations. With the talents and gifts you possess, I was certain that the dragon pill would give you a good chance to create a miracle. However, I did not expect this day to arrive so soon. In addition, your decision is also beyond what we had expected and planned for. I can't believe you chose to use the yin-yang complement technique. You are really brave. You should know how many soul beasts failed and died after choosing this path. This is a path that cannot be walked, even with the toughness of soul beasts' bodies. Yet you still stood by your beliefs, and wanted to do it with a human's body. With the amount of courage and determination you have, I am proud to call you my disciple. Since you have chosen this path, as your teacher, I must help you regardless of what it takes. Now that the energy within the dragon pill had been drawn out, you can continue cultivating it while I control it and help you fuse it into your blood. This will allow you to possess the physical strength of a dragon, and greatly improve your odds of success. Yes. Thank you, teacher. Huo Yuhao could feel an encouraging sense of warmth within his heart. Even though his teacher might be dead in the physical sense, he had never stopped caring for him. In fact, Elder Mu had already thought about the path ahead, and had made plans to make things easier for him. Huo Yuhao knew he could only repay his teacher by ensuring the survival and prosperity of Shrek Academy. Now was not the time to indulge in overly lengthy conversations. Huo Yuhao could sense how the energy shockwaves within his body were becoming more intense. The energy from the dragon pill, which had just fused with his blood, also seemed to be particularly unstable. However, Huo Yuhao decided to focus on controlling his spiritual soul core, as he shifted his intent back to his spiritual sea. Controlling his spiritual soul core was the key to everything, and the most important step for the entire procedure. His control of the spiritual soul core proceeded extremely smoothly. The pain that Huo Yuhao was suffering from was also alleviated to a large extent with the nourishment provided by the dragon pill. This allowed him to better focus his energy and attention on the task at hand. Elder Mu's gentle aura fused rapidly into Huo Yuhao's blood. The unstable energy from the dragon pill started to circulate in Huo Yuhao's passageways under Elder Mu's guidance. Some of the mystical energy started to fuse with his internal organs as well. The speed at which they were fusing was extremely quick. The scales on Huo Yuhao's body started to become pointed as they grew thicker and grander. This dragon pill had, in fact, been adjusting to Huo Yuhao's body after it had been inserted into him back then. It only reacted violently after the initial intense agitation. It had long started to adapt to Huo Yuhao's body, and Huo Yuhao had been absorbing it subconsciously during his cultivation. Elder Mu had informed Long Xiaoyao to pass the pill to Huo Yuhao for him to use it when he was forming his second soul core. However, neither of them had expected Huo Yuhao to use the dragon pill's energy so soon. As the gentle soul power fluctuations circulated through the surrounding air, the entire laboratory's atmosphere seemed to calm down after the appearance of the dragon pill. The ice crystal formed by the Snow Empress no longer seemed to be on the brink of overexertion. It merely continued to control Huo Yuhao's second soul core in a stable and continuous fashion. The soul core continued to absorb the power of ultimate ice, as it rotated in the opposite direction as Huo Yuhao's spiritual soul core in a determined manner. Because the power released by the spiritual soul core was being limited by Huo Yuhao, it was ultimately unable to disrupt the formation of the ultimate ice soul core. However, the spiritual soul core never stopped fighting against Huo Yuhao as it released countless spiritual fluctuations that attacked his body. However, the power of the dragon pill was truly formidable. Huo Yuhao only felt the bountiful energy surging through his body. Before, he had felt as though his body was about to be torn apart by the spiritual fluctuations. However, it was now a lot easier for him to withstand the pressure. Even though it was still painful, he no longer felt like he was about to disintegrate. As each second and minute continued to pass, Huo Yuhao started to become a lot more relaxed. Suddenly, Elder Mu's aura disappeared, as Huo Yuhao's entire body took on a uniform golden color. The soul core at his chest had grown to twice its original size. It now resembled a blue ice crystal, as its speed continued to accelerate. Because Huo Yuhao was now able to withstand greater impacts, the Snow Empress had decided to speed up the soul core formation process. The faster the process ended, the less pain Huo Yuhao had to suffer. However, this peaceful state did not last very long. Very soon, the pain began to intensify again. The power within the spiritual soul core seemed to be endless, as it started to launch an increasingly intense onslaught on Huo Yuhao's second soul core. The familiar painful sensation seemed to have returned. Huo Yuhao knew he had to persevere through this no matter what, especially after his teacher had helped him pull through once with the power of the dragon pill. Huo Yuhao tried to hold on with every ounce of energy within his body. However, it was becoming increasingly hard for him to control his spiritual soul core. This was because both soul cores had to continually engage and interact with one another in order to complete the yin-yang complement technique. As his second soul core became stronger, the spiritual power the Ice Empress required Huo Yuhao to release from his spiritual soul core had to become greater. As the spiritual soul core released more spiritual power, it became even harder for Huo Yuhao to control it. Something could happen with the spiritual soul core at any point. After agitating it for a prolonged period of time, the spiritual soul core, which had just begun to become stable, started to tremble and lose its stability. What do I do now? At this instant, Huo Yuhao started to panic. Everyone had put in so much effort to help him succeed. If he were to fail now, he would not only sustain serious injuries, but also lose the opportunity to attempt this again in the near future. In fact, he might also lose his life if he were to fail. As the intense pain fluctuated between his chest and head, Huo Yuhao grew increasingly dizzy. He was on the verge of going unconscious. If he were to really faint, his spiritual soul core would go out of control. My child, please help me defend Shrek City and the Academy. Take good care of the Tang sect. I will always be proud of you. Elder Mu's old voice rang in Huo Yuhao's head. Following which, an incredibly powerful burst of spiritual power radiated from Huo Yuhao's spiritual sea. This spiritual power gave off the same aura as his own. Huo Yuhao only felt his controlling ability increase as a golden sea appeared around his spiritual soul core. This golden sea was not his own spiritual sea. It contained spiritual power that did not belong to him. After this sea of spiritual power appeared, his spiritual soul core, which was putting up intense resistance, instantly stabilized. On top of that, it started to greedily absorb the pure spiritual power within the golden sea. During this process, it no longer behaved in an aggressive manner. It was as though a powerful cultivator had suddenly stumbled upon a treasure trove when they were going after their enemy. They would definitely choose to temporarily let their enemy go as they focused on the treasures. As the spiritual soul core started to stabilize, the dizziness and pain Huo Yuhao was feeling naturally subsided. He was shocked to discover how he was able to control his spiritual power with greater ease. After being enveloped by the golden sea, his spiritual soul core was a lot more obedient. At the same time, Huo Yuhao could no longer sense the resistance his soul core had towards his ultimate ice soul core. Yuhao, this is all I can do for you. You will have to walk the path ahead alone. I believe that you will be able to carve out a path that belongs to you. I will take my leave first. As the golden light flickered, Elder Mu disappeared from Huo Yuhao's consciousness. Teacher. If he could cry, tears would have been streaming all over Huo Yuhao's face. His teacher's selfless assistance had once again helped him overcome a significant challenge. A golden image left the metallic door that separated the laboratory from the courtyard. Elder Mu appeared in front of Elder Xian. Elder Xian was pacing outside the door anxiously while waiting for Elder Mu to reappear. After seeing him, he heaved a huge sigh of relief. The conversation he had had with Elder Mu earlier had given him an ominous feeling. Elder Mu was like a teacher and a friend to him. If he did not know that Elder Mu had been nurturing his own spiritual sense within the golden tree, Elder Xian might have been even sadder than Huo Yuhao. Elder Mu revealed a warm smile on his wrinkled face as he stared at Elder Xian. Xianzi, I will need you to take care of Shrek City and Shrek Academy for me. Don't tell Yuhao about this. Just pretend that I'm still in the golden tree. After finishing his sentence, Elder Mu's golden image shattered into countless golden particles that disappeared into the air. Elder Xian was stunned by what he had just witnessed. He could no longer sense Elder Mu's presence. Elder Mu, Elder Mu. Elder Xian stumbled backwards as he tried to take everything in. Even with his ultimate Doluo ability, he almost tripped and fell down. His entire body was trembling intensely as he longed to scream and express his pain. However, his rationality held him back. In the Imperial Palace within Radiant City, the Sun Moon Empire, a secret letter was lying on Shu Tianran's desk. There was an adorable orange mandarin, Juzi, logo at the opening of the envelope. After receiving this letter, Shu Tianran couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile. It seems like Juzi's letter is finally here. I wonder how she'll handle the current situation. A thorough search had been conducted for the past few days, but they were still unable to locate their enemies. It seemed as though they had disappeared without leaving a trace after sneaking an attack on Radiant City. This was completely unbelievable. Shu Tianran was starting to worry that the enemies really possessed some sort of spatial technology like Elder Kong had suggested. If his foes really possessed such technologies, their next attack could take place within Radiant City. After opening the envelope, Shu Tianran took out the letter. This envelope had been sealed with a certain kind of soul tool that was able to destroy the letter if the person did not know how to properly unseal the envelope. Juzi's beautiful handwriting decorated the entire letter. Her words seemed to convey the respect she had for Shu Tianran. Shu Tianran already felt happier just from looking at her words. He started to wonder if he had gone overboard when Juzi asked him about whether she could bring the prince to the battlefield with her. He felt that perhaps his reply should have been more positive. However, he believed that he had already repaid her loyalty with the trust he had shown her by giving her control over the army. As he thought about this, Shu Tianran began to read the contents of the letter. While he was reading, the changes in his facial expression were extremely drastic. While he revealed a startled expression at times, he was more often than not admiring what Juzi had done. He was full of praise for her. I can't believe she thought of such a good way to tackle the cumbersome situation. She really is the war god empress of the Sun Moon Empire. Juzi is really the person I trust the most. The main theme of Juzi's letter only contained these 3 words. Do not attack. They would surround Shrek City, but would not attack it. She planned to draw all the forces that shared a relationship with Shrek City to the place where their current camp was set up. They would set up their defensive lines outside their camp and reinforce these lines with their linked defensive soul tools. They would not initiate an attack, as they gave Shrek City a relatively long deadline to turn Huo Yuhao in. Once the Star Luo Empire and Douling Empire's troops gathered at Shrek City, they would have achieved their objective. They could then be a lot more flexible with who their real target was. And if the enemy force that attacked Radiant City were to be in contact with the Shrek Academy, they would definitely retreat unconditionally to help defend Shrek City. The two Soul Engineer Legions would definitely be useful for the battle at Shrek City. This meant that regardless of what capabilities this team possessed, they could only use them to fight the Sun Moon Empire directly on the battlefield. And when it came to such head-on battles, the Sun Moon Empire was almost invincible. Good, good, good. Shu Qianran exclaimed in delight. His injuries seemed to have gotten better by a little bit. He immediately penned a reply, and ordered his subordinates to rush his letter to the front line. He told Juzi to decide the next course of action by herself, and not to worry about the situation back at Radiant City. He informed her that the Imperial Soul Engineer Legion had returned to Radiant City to protect the palace, and was waiting for favorable news from the front line. Once again, Juzi had used her wisdom to gain more trust from Shu Qianran. He seemed to believe that the Star Luo Empire and Douling Empire had already fallen into his hands. He felt that Shrek City was but another city after all. It should not be impossible to destroy it. To be honest, Shu Qianran did not want to destroy Shrek City. Instead, he wanted to see Shrek City bow to him, because that would give him the strongest sense of accomplishment. When Shu Qianran was younger, he had once fantasized about the Shrek Academy, the #1 academy on the entire continent. Shu Qianran would only be happier if Shrek City would willingly join and be a part of the Sun Moon Empire. If that were to happen, every secret about Soul Masters that the Academy would uncover would belong to the Sun Moon Empire. They might be able to draw some insights from martial souls and find a way to heal limbs. Especially that limb which only males had. Shu Qianran immediately became uncontrollably excited the moment this idea entered his head. A powerful desire enveloped his mind as he thought about Juzi. How could he not love his beautiful and capable war god Empress? She was his Empress, after all. However, he was somehow unable to conquer her body physically, and such miseries were deadly for any man. Even Shu Qianran, the Emperor of the Sun Moon Empire, was no exception. In the Sun Moon Empire's commander's tent outside of Shrek City, Juzi was sitting in the commander's seat, as she read the reconnaissance reports, which had been submitted to her. A faint smile was forming on her face. Shrek City. Why would I attack Shrek City? This academy holds great significance to that man. Regardless of what happens, I will never destroy Shrek City and the academy recklessly. However, this will not affect my plans to attack the other empires, especially the Star Luo Empire. Even though the hatred within Juzi's heart had slowly faded away, that did not necessarily mean she had forgotten about it. Conversely, she now felt as if everything was under her control, and looked forward to that day's arrival. If the Star Luo Empire had not destroyed my homeland and turned me into a helpless orphan, I would not have met Shu Qianran. Hence, she knew she must destroy the Star Luo Empire in the future in order to relieve herself from the deep hatred which lay in her heart. However, her current target was not the Star Luo Empire. Empress. A dark figure suddenly appeared in the commander's tent without any warning. Juzi had long been accustomed to the way this person arrived. She stood up slowly and flashed a smile. Imperial Tutor, you're here. Yes. Zhongli Wu nodded as he strolled closer to Juzi before stopping. Empress, have you decided when we will attack Shrek City? Juzi replied, there are still 8 more days before the deadline arrives. You need to be patient. Empress, do you really plan to be honest with Shrek City? Zhongli Wu replied coldly, I believe the academy had already started to ask for help from all over the entire continent. Before long, reinforcements from Star Luo Empire and the Douling Empire will arrive. When that happens, we will need to sustain huge costs in order to destroy them. You must think about the injuries and deaths we will have to sustain when that happens. With our current strength, we can flatten Shrek City anytime as we will. Juzi shook her head gently and said, I believe Imperial Tutor must be extremely familiar with Shrek Academy. Since that's the case, what do you think will be the cost for our victory if we are to force an attack on them right now? Zhongli Wu was a little startled as he replied, Shrek Academy has taken in the remaining bastards from the Heavenly Soul Empire. Even if we were to factor in their own city defense army, their numbers would still pale in comparison to ours. After all, we have an 800,000 strong army, with 8 Soul Engineer legions. We should be able to destroy their defensive lines, just with our Soul Engineer legions. Zhu Zi said, no, it won't be that simple. Based on the data we have collected, it seems like Shrek Academy already possesses the ability to manufacture Class 9 stationary Soul Cannon shells. As for the exact number of shells which they have produced, we have yet to obtain any reliable data. In addition, the Academy has countless powerful Soul Masters. Almost every single elder within the Sea God's Pavilion possesses abilities which rival that of a transcendent Doluo. If we were to force their hand, I am unsure what this powerful Academy with over 10,000 years of history is capable of. Right now, the best strategy for us is to surround them, but not attack them. As for the reinforcements you were mentioning earlier, they are the people I want to see the most. It would best if they were to turn up here. Zhongli Wu squinted after listening to Zhu Zi's words. He was not a fool, as he seemed to have sensed something after hearing what she said. Empress, does this mean you don't plan to attack Shrek City? Zhu Zi said, it is not the right time yet. The Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion and the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion have just set off the night before last. Our army camp looks the same, but we already have 50,000 troops leaving the camp and cooperating with the 2 Soul Engineer Legions. We just need to attract Shrek Academy's attention here at the front line. Even though it is not the right time to attack, we can still launch feint attacks once in a while. Zhongli Wu's breathing started to become uneven as he said authoritatively, with the current power we have, we can definitely take them down if we were to put in our best effort. Even if they try to retaliate, we definitely possess the ability to suppress them. Once Shrek City falls, the psychological support that the Star Luo Empire and Douling Empire depend on will disappear. This means the entire continent will definitely be ours sooner or later. I don't understand why you want to delay the entire plan. Zhu Zi replied plainly, Imperial Tutor, I want to remind you of your appointment. You are the military supervisor, not the commander. When it pertains to tactical and strategic matters, I will be the one calling the shots. If you are unsatisfied with any of my plans, feel free to take it up with His Majesty. If His Majesty does not agree with my plans, I am definitely willing to change them. Zhongli Wu's breathing started to become rapid. For inexplicable reasons, he seemed to fear Zhu Zi a little. But of course, he did not fear her for her fighting power. He could definitely destroy Zhu Zi easily in a fight with the ability that she possessed. However, she was truly frightening when it came to leading troops and strategizing warfare. It was almost as though she was assisted by God himself. Even though Zhongli Wu was not a young man anymore, he was still unable to fully appreciate and understand her military arrangements. Nonetheless, her inspiring tactics were always able to decide victory, even when he did not understand them. Hence, he really did not dare to offend Zhu Zi. Furthermore, she had the support of multiple Class 9 Soul Engineers around her. Even though he had brought several powerful cultivators from the Holy Ghost Church along with him, Soul Engineers were not as frightened of evil Soul Masters as regular Soul Masters were. HMPH. Take care then, Empress. Zhongli Wu waved the sleeve of his robe as he turned and left. Zhu Zi looked at the back of his figure and flashed a faint smile. In that case, I will not be sending you off. This video will end here.